It's been a wild 24 hours in Libya. Muammar Gaddafi has made it clear he's not going without a fight, and there was some fierce fights overnight as he tried to take back parts of eastern Libya from the rebels who took it from him. This was his first offensive against the fighters holding that part of the country, which, by the way, is where the oil is, and his forces tried to move in on two key towns. We have the story covered tonight with our team on the ground in the region. We want to begin with NBC's Stephanie Gosk. She's in Benghazi, the unofficial operating base for these anti-Gaddafi rebels. Stephanie, good evening.
Good evening, Brian. Gaddafi wasn't just looking to retake a town. He was going after the oil. Brega is one of the most important oil ports in this country. The surprise attack worked at first.
Today, Gaddafi struck back at the rebels in the east. This YouTube video claims to show the raging battle in Brega. Militia forces moved in at dawn with SUVs and mounted machine guns. One opposition fighter in the small oil town described a massacre.
A terrible situation, is actually slaughter. We went there nearly 100, just maybe 20 get back and 10 still alive.
The ground attack was followed by airstrikes, repeatedly hitting a weapons depot in nearby Ajdabiya. While injuries from the gun battle filled the local hospital, this 6-year-old boy was caught in the crossfire.
It's a massacre right now, it's a massacre.
But these aren't peaceful protesters. This is a rebel fighting force, disorganized, inexperienced, and heavily armed. When news came that Brega had been attacked, they rushed to the fight and pushed back Gaddafi's militia. Many signed up in the town of Benghazi, which has become the rebel capital of the East. We will win or we will die, this man says.
The difficult part will be harnessing that energy and using it to create an effective fighting force. There are 5,000 people that have been conscripted so far. Most of them have never served in the military and have never fired a gun.
Former military officers have started the training, while ammunition is stockpiled around town and weapons are tested. On the streets, the demonstrations continue with defiance and an open contempt of Muammar Gaddafi that was once unthinkable. Stephanie Gosk, NBC News, Benghazi.
I'm Jim Maseda in Tripoli. Muammar Gaddafi, the Arab world's longest-serving leader, chose this day, the anniversary of his revolution, and this crowd, packed with supporters and dozens of foreign journalists, to set the record straight. Here's what he said about Libya's uprising. There is no uprising, no power struggles, and no internal problems in Libya. It's the kind of head-snapping response the world has come to know. Gaddafi, in his flowing robes, head held high and speaking for 2.5 hours, hardly looked like a spent force. He's always been eccentric: female bodyguards, a Ukrainian nurse, and that ubiquitous Bedouin tent, even on a visit to New York. Some call him defiant, others delusional. Which one is it?
I would make the point that you don't get to run a country for more than 4 decades by being a flake.
Gaddafi has survived through a mix of patronage, keeping real power within his Qaddafi tribe, and ruthless brutality. There is a conspiracy to control the Libyan oil, to control the Libyan land, and colonize Libya again, he said. In this room, at least, he knew he was adored and safe. Every pen had been checked.
Some Libya experts even talk about Gaddafiism, a kind of socialist philosophy with a manic twist. However long he lasts, they say, it'll be a tough act to follow. Brian?
Jim Maseda, Stephanie Gosk, starting off our coverage from Libya tonight, thanks to you both. And now to our chief foreign correspondent, Richard Engel. He has also now gotten into Tripoli. And Richard, what are you seeing there tonight, and what do you say to people who want to know about the endgame?
It is such a different feeling here. When I was in Benghazi, you can feel that there's a revolution underway. People are excited, they're motivated. Many people are out with weapons, they're wearing berets. Here in Tripoli, there's a feeling that people just want to ignore this. We're in the eye of the storm. Even though this city is now circled with checkpoints by Gaddafi supporters, in the center of the town, as we drove in from the airport today, you don't see any military presence. Instead, we saw people who are out sweeping the streets. There are restaurants that are open. Gaddafi and this city appear to believe that if they ignore the war, perhaps it just won't come onto the center of the city. And if this continues and Gaddafi remains in power and the people choose to accept this suspended state of reality, then this could last a while.
All right, and so it goes. Richard Engel in Tripoli for us tonight. Richard, thanks. The fighting in Libya today helped send oil up on another rocket ride. It closed above $100 a barrel, where it stands now at 102.23. Four-star U.S. Army General David Petraeus has made a highly unusual personal apology tonight after a deadly mistake by NATO forces in the mountains of eastern Afghanistan. 9 boys were collecting firewood when they were killed by NATO helicopters overhead. They were mistaken for insurgents on the ground. The victims included 2 sets of brothers. In his apology, General Petraeus called the incident a tragedy. He said these deaths should never have happened. 2 members of the U.S. Air Force on their way to Afghanistan were killed. 2 others badly injured today when a gunman opened fire on a U.S. military bus at the airport in Frankfurt, Germany. A 21-year-old man was arrested at the scene. Relative says he is a German Muslim who worked at the airport. Now, German police aren't ready to call this an act of terrorism, but they so far aren't ruling it out either. The Army today filed 22 new charges against Bradley Manning, the young private first class accused of illegally downloading tens of thousands of classified U.S. documents that were then publicly released by WikiLeaks. The most serious among the new charges filed today is aiding the enemy, a charge that could result in the death penalty. But the prosecution will not recommend it. They're asking for a life sentence instead.